Welcome to Sparks and Quarks, a podcast all about science and engineering. Well, at least we hope it's all about. We might go off on a couple of tangents. I'm Dan.
And I'm Adam.
And we're sorry. It's been a little while since our first / previous episode. Basically, what it is, really interesting story. We're both terrible people. And mainly I kept saying I was busy, and Adam, Paul, he was very, very kind about it. But it was basically... it was basically just
We've both had very busy weeks, really, haven't we?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, on that topic, so what have you been up to since the last episode? Because it's been about, 2 weeks since we recorded?
Well, yeah, it has. It's been about 2 weeks, just over. I got a job.
Oh, congratulations.
I am working for my dad, building picnic benches.
Oh, fantastic.
Which is fun. It's loads of fun.
Yeah. Well,
which has meant...
Sort of making them sort of just from planks and from scratch, or are you building them up as kits, or what are you doing?
Yes, so we're essentially building them up from scratch, using either construction grade timber or we buy in some large planks from a sawmill nearby.
Okay.
And they come out lovely. They are really nice. But yeah, building picnic benches. That's pretty much what all my time has gone into at the minute. That and seeing the girlfriend. So yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, I've had a pretty good couple of days in the previous 2 weeks actually. Yeah. This weekend actually it's probably been the best, sort of, because obviously I'm working full time. But this weekend I went up to London and I saw a musical called Heathers. Do you know it?
Oh, awesome. No, I don't know it. I've seen you tweet about it, but I don't know what it's about.
It's a very good musical. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who might not know it and might be going to see it, but it's a dark comedy musical set in, I think, 1980s America, about sort of high school cliques and relationships, but it's got some absolutely stunning acting in it. Carrie Hope Fletcher, if anyone knows the actress and vlogger, is the lead in it, and she is sublime. She knocks it out the park, but frankly the entire cast do. So I've been just sort of raving about that for the past few days, really. Although I did have a slightly...
Sounds pretty good, to be honest.
It was amazing. Although I have to say my Monday was probably slightly more exciting because that was when my sister graduated from Exeter.
Oh, awesome. Wow, congratulations.
She went and got a first, sort of, so already beaten my 2-1 in English with proficiency in Chinese, because one language just isn't enough.
Nope.
So yeah, very, very, very proud of her, and yeah, we all had a great day.
Wow, yeah, that's
really
awesome.
Yeah, and of course the added bonus that I got to see the Exeter Chamber Choir and hang out with them for a bit.
Yeah.
So
So was that? Did you get to see Dan at all?
I did indeed. I got to see Dan. We had a cheeky selfie in the pub with Ed.
Oh, lovely.
So I had a grand old time sort of discussing life and what we're going to be doing this summer. Hopefully going to meet up with him at some point over the summer, but we'll see. Dan, we're going to make it happen if you listen to this. I have no idea if you listen to this or not.
Well, I mean, you should have said when you're down in Exeter, because I live like 50 minutes away, so I could have come down on the train. Oh,
I should have said. Although to be honest, it was a busy day. I like to think that I would have been able to meet up with you, but it was full on.
Exactly. Yeah. I can imagine a graduation and meeting with the Exeter Chapel Choir.
Yeah, absolutely. But fingers crossed, I should be meeting with them again this weekend, because they're down in Truro singing at the
awesome.
Falmouth campus graduations. So I'll be bothering them again then.
Yeah. Bother them well.
Absolutely. So I mean, as much as I like to think that we are the main elements of this podcast, we probably ought to be discussing the true core of it, which is our topics. And I think you're going to take the first one, aren't you?
Yes, I am indeed. This time I'm going to be talking about something a bit different. Okay. It's not necessarily what you would think of when you think of physics.
Right.
Although it is very closely related in a lot of respects, some of which I will not be going into this time because it's very, very complicated.
Okay.
As soon as you know what I'm going to talk about, you'll know it's too complicated. And this week I'm going to be talking about DeepMind AI, which is the artificial intelligence company that Google acquired in 2014.
Oh, excellent. No, this is going to be really good.
Yeah, so should I just get straight into it?
Absolutely, go for it.
Yeah, okay. Well, so I'll give you a bit of background on the company first. They specialize in creating neural network AIs,
Hmm.
meaning that the system can mimic short and long term memory, as well as being able to access external memory protocols as well. So
Okay, so
if you connect it to the internet, essentially it could access all of Wikipedia and just spit facts at you.
cool. So I've actually done a bit of work with AI at university, so I know what a neural network is. But for those who might not be aware, what is a neural network?
Well, a neural network is, I think you'll be better at explaining this,
Okay, that's fine.
to be
So
quite honest.
so a neural network is an attempt to mimic the human brain, but in code. So the human brain is made up of, I'm going to get the numbers wrong, but I think it's billions of neurons, each sort of firing off electrical signals. And a neural network is a code simulation of that with sort of virtual representations of neurons trying to mimic the human brain. So you've got one neuron, and then you have another, and you stack them up, and they have weights and biases, and they're all interlinked. And there's things called backfeeding, and you can train this neural network. You can give it sort of data, and say for example, I did a neural network that was designed to identify shapes, and so I gave it a picture of a square, and I told it this is a
Yep.
square, and it passed the data through,
Okay.
and it popped out at the end, and it said this is a circle. I went, no, 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 this is a square.
Oh,
And you train it, you give it lots and lots of data, and eventually it changes the values of the weights and the biases until eventually you can put through a square that you know is a square, and it'll say this is a square, and then you
yep.
can put through a shape, and it'll tell you what shape it is. That's quite a basic view of neural networks, but yeah,
Yes,
think
yeah.
of them as digital, very very basic representations of the human brain.
Yeah, and I mean, sort of a big thing about it as well is that this isn't a program that's just coded to know exactly what's going on. It's a program that's coded to learn.
Hmm.
So it's not just going to say, oh, that's not in my code, so I don't know what to do here.
Yeah,
It's going to sort of teach itself all the different things with the data you feed it rather than just relying on the code it already has built.
sure.
Yeah, so the most famous the thing the company is most famous for is the AlphaGo program, which became the world champion in the game Go after beating Lee Sedol, I think it is, in a best of five match, and he was the current world champion at the time, and I believe he got absolutely slaughtered.
Right. So he got beaten in a game by a computer.
Yes, and I mean Go is not the most complicated of games.
No, and the thing is, like, I used to play Lego chess occasionally on the computer, and I'd lose to that quite a lot. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, chess is one of those games where it's just extremely complicated, the game, but a computer can beat you so easily.
exactly. So why was it so important that this computer was able to beat this guy at Go if Go was such a simple game?
Okay, so Go, it's not that simple. It's there's a lot that goes into it and a lot of thought processes that need to be behind it. And the reason it's just so important is just because no AI had come close to beating a world champion in a game of the complexity of Go before.
Right.
So, I
Okay.
mean, computers beat the world champion at chess like pretty far back.
Hmm.
But I mean, you get more complicated games, and obviously it becomes so much harder for an AI to beat world champions or to even be up there with the same level as any human playing the game.
Sure. Okay. So it was significant because it's a game that requires sort of, what does it require? Creative thinking, because of, chess you can break down to
Yeah,
a series of moves and you're able to sort of predict what your opponent's going to do. But I guess if Go requires that element of creative thinking, that's where sort of being a human has its advantage.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, yeah, well, you got it on the head, really. But yeah, this time I'm actually going to be talking about the next game that they have sort of they're making big advances in,
Okay.
which is the capture the flag game mode in Quake 3.
Right. I have to admit, I have never played any of the Quake series. Like it's bad.
Neither have I.
Ah, okay, it's good. Similar boats then.
Yeah, similar boats. So we know equally as little about Quake 3 Capture the Flag as each other. Now, I'm sure you know about Capture the Flag in general.
I do
Obviously, there
indeed.
are two teams. You have a base. Each team has a base with a flag in it, and you have to invade the other team's base, capture the flag, or clues in the name, and take it back to your base to receive a point. And at the end of a certain amount of time, whoever's got the most points will win. So now this program works a little differently, because the main program, the main problem with this is that the game runs in a multi-agent setting, meaning that there are multiple players within the game that all need to co-interact with each other. Now, because they're co-interacting, there's a huge problem to overcome in AI because the environment is constantly changing.
Right.
And in this case, the map layout also changes in each game that is played, which is obviously an extra difficulty.
Yeah, so it's a vast number of variables that are changing, and it's quite difficult to account for them all.
Exactly. And for an AI especially, this is going to be extremely hard to deal with because it has to process so many things at once. So the engineers thought, well, how can we get each agent to sort of think what is going on? And essentially, they just looked at the real world and said, now we want this AI to play in the exact same way that a human does.
Okay.
So, for it to do that, the AI is having to produce actions and learn directly from the raw pixels that a human would see. So it's using frames of pixels to learn how to play the game.
Oh, okay. So it's literally like, I mean, I suppose you could say it's like if you just pointed a camera at the screen and went, "This is all the information you're getting. You're not getting any of the raw data coming from the game. This is all you got."
Yep. That's all they get.
Oh,
they don't
that's
get anything.
cool.
They don't get any form of learning at the start either. They don't know the rules at the start of the game.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what to do. All they have is a basic reward system.
That's very
which
cool.
is how they learn. So because of this, the actions that are made by the program are made through an emulator game controller as well. So I mean, even cooler, it's literally an artificial human.
Hey.
You know.
Finally,
So
someone who I can talk to. What? No, nothing.
right. So a bit more about how the AI is actually working. So at first, like I said, they go in, they know nothing about the game, and instead of just training one agent in a game of human players, or even in a game of just programmed players like bots that aren't an AI, they're trained together in population, or they train a population of agents at once.
Mm-hmm.
So this could be 1,000 agents all being trained together at once, all in similar games, not exactly the same game because you just don't get that many players in a game. But from the very basic reward system that it has, it goes through two different timescales, a fast one and a slow one. And so it essentially reads a frame and it looks at the next frame after it, and then it pulls back and it looks at, it sends that information to a policy. And now the policy could be, okay, I have to attack, I have to run, I have to, I don't know, capture the flag, defend my base, whatever. The policy is just essentially an aim that the AI has to follow.
Okay.
And from this policy, it will decide what action to take. Now, obviously, the outcome of the action will decide whether it should get a reward or not, based on its own reward system. So some AIs just choose to reward the wrong thing. They choose to reward death. So they're, thrown off the shelf. They're a load of rubbish. We don't want them.
Yeah.
But some will develop a reward system so that if they get a kill, then that'll be a reward. So it then stores that data and knows it should do it again. And obviously, the more and more it does this, and the more actions that it takes and gives itself rewards for these good actions, the better and better and better it will get at the game.
Okay.
And this is simply from looking at groups of 2 frames at once.
Right. So this sounds very much like what's called a genetic algorithm, which is where you have a neural network and you tell it, okay, here's your data. And so when you're training up a neural network, you have your training data and you pass your training data through, and then you say, yes, you're correct. No, you're incorrect. And each time it's incorrect, it goes, okay, well, I'll change up these numbers and I'll modify this and I'll add a bit of random mutation to this number. And it's called a genetic algorithm because it's meant to mimic genetic evolution, but on obviously a
Yeah.
much higher timescale. So it sounds like that's what it's doing. Every time it does an action, it's going to reward itself if it's correct, and it's using its genetic algorithm to go, okay, this is a good thing, so let's keep playing around with my weights and biases to make sure that
Yeah,
I'll do this again.
exactly. And I mean, this is doing it at such a rate where it's doing this constantly. It's thinking, okay, I'm running forwards. I need to keep running forwards. And then because it's running and because it hasn't died maybe, or because it's making progress towards the flag, it's continually rewarding itself for that.
Mm-hmm.
And say if it runs into a wall, well, then it's stopped running forwards because it can't move forwards, so then it's not going to reward itself. So it knows that not to run into walls and do all these stupid things. And essentially, after doing this for so many times, so many different trainings, and all this, the program becomes extremely good at the game. Now, I'm looking at a graph here from the paper that will be in the show notes that I base this off. But it's actually after the FTW, which is what a winning agent will be called,
Okay.
or an agent that is rewarding itself for all the correct things, it will become better than an average human at around 100,000 training games.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah,
That's like
so
in the
that may
grand scheme of
seem like
things.
a lot.
Yeah, but that's not in the grand scheme of things. 100,000 games. I mean, if you think it's not like a human, you don't have to take breaks. You can let it run and run and run and run.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah.
So what you're saying is, I mean,
So
I already lose to bots when I play games online anyway. So you're saying it's going to become even harder?
oh yes, oh yes, trust me. But
Oh.
then this is the thing. It gets to about 180,000 training games, and then it's better than a strong human. Like someone who is very good at the game. If we look at the elos here, when I say an average human, that's an elo of around 1,050, just to sort of give you a baseline.
Hmm.
But and a strong human has an elo of 1,300.
Sorry, Elo being
An elo is basically a way of ranking how good someone is in a game. It's basically matchmaking,
right. Okay.
or an MMR, which is a match-made ranking.
Right. Okay. So
So
higher Elo is better.
a higher elo is better, yeah. Obviously, when they start out, they have an elo of 500. So, I mean, that's going to be the same as everyone who starts playing the game. Like anyone, like you or I, who have never played the game before,
Hmm.
we're going to start out with an elo of 500 because, that's just what we are. We're shit,
Yeah.
essentially. But yeah, the crazy thing is that with a human, they tend to sort of level off a bit, where they get to the edge of their skill. Whereas these things, at 450,000 training games played, it's got an agent elo of like 1,600, which is up there with professionals.
We are playing with forces we cannot hope to control.
I know, it's actually incredible just reading about this and seeing how quickly they make advances. And we've got to remember as well that the map layout is changing after every single training game they play.
Yeah, so it's
So
not
they'll
like
go
it's
into a
playing the
new
same
game.
game over and over again.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just going to remember one route and always do that route because that route is going to make them win the game. They're having to change all the time through different like levels, altitudes, different directions that they have to follow, and with different obstacles in the way.
Yeah.
Like when you think about it, and it's all learnt about it, it's all taught. It's taught itself everything by itself,
Yeah.
which is just how incredible an artificial intelligence is. Like maybe you don't think about it on such a level sometimes, like when you hear about AI and how AI could, be sentient and destroy the planet
Yeah.
because
Well,
it doesn't like humans.
I feel like there's, in the public's perception, there's two different versions of AI that people think about. One of them is certainly, yeah, sort of the Skynet approach and, yeah, we've created
Yeah.
something horrible, kill all humans, apocalypse scenario. But the other is, oh yeah, it's the AI on my phone. It's Google Now. It's Siri. It's
Yeah,
Cortana,
exactly.
which is sort of AI. It's more of an
Yeah,
assistant.
well,
It's
it is.
I would argue
Yeah,
AI, artificial intelligence, it has to have some element of learning, which I don't now.
I
Okay,
agree.
there is a little bit of learning when it comes to sort of voice activated systems because they obviously learn the sound of your voice, um, and they're able to recognize that. But it's not true AI because you have to follow certain commands. You have to say, oh, like play this on Spotify, or you have to follow a set series of commands. You can't modify them. Whereas
Yeah,
a true AI, you'd be able to say, okay, when I say this, you know, what I mean is this, and the AI would go, okay, remember that, store that. So every time you then said, okay, turn my lights on at 3 in the morning if you know someone breaks into my house, the AI would go, okay, sure, not, I'm sorry, I don't understand that. So,
yeah, exactly.
but it sounds like this does have that element of learning about it.
Well, yeah, of course it does. In this case, this has so much learning. It's all built on learning, and that's just what makes it such an amazing AI. And this is why DeepMind just have some of the best, coding engineers and just in general artificial intelligence engineers in the world.
Absolutely. Now, I'm going out on a limb here again with my lack of knowledge, but I think because DeepMind is owned by Google, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It wasn't started up by Google, but it was
No,
acquired by Google
it
in
was acquired by Google,
2014,
but
yeah.
I think I'm correct in saying it was actually a British startup.
It was indeed, yes.
Yeah,
It was founded in 2010 in Britain. Its main headquarters are still in London,
right.
but it
Okay.
also has other centers in like Silicon Valley
Yeah,
and
Mountain
other
View.
places in California as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's very cool though. Like
So yeah,
that we've got to that level, and of course, people might be saying, okay, great, you've taught a computer how to play a video game really well. What use does that have? But I guess the knowledge gained from how this, how this AI was coded and the way it's reacted to the data can then be used, applied to AI used everywhere else. I think it's Watson. They're using Watson, which is another AI, for helping to diagnose cancer in patients.
yeah,
Um,
I think that's right. Yeah,
so yes, just because it's been taught how to play games doesn't then mean that's all it'll ever do. The knowledge gained from it can be applied to AI research everywhere.
exactly. And I mean, like with this, it's watching a stream of particles, which essentially is sort of they're mimicking the human eye and the human brain, how it interacts with this with things it sees.
Yeah,
Which equally, as soon as this technology becomes better, it could be put into eyes for robots and or bionic eyes for people who can't see,
yeah,
because these things will be able to be integrated into human neural networks as soon as the technology gets good enough.
exactly, exactly. Oh, that's
And
that's
yeah,
very cool.
I mean, yeah, and just to say as well, some people may be thinking, oh yeah, but it's a computer program. It's gonna have insane reaction times, and its aim is gonna be insane because it will just be able to look at it and point at it as soon as it sees the frame. And yeah, this is true. However, the people who did all these experiments manually reduced it, and it was actually shown to be one of the lesser parts of why they're so good at the game.
Oh,
It's
so
actually learning more about strategy than it is about aiming and killing.
that's cool. So they say, yeah, so they clearly thought about all the different variables at play, and yeah, I guess clock speed or speed of calculation was one of them. So they actually manually reduced how fast it was operating, and it still was doing
Yep,
bloody well.
it it was still doing really well. And actually, one of the interesting facts is that it was put into a tournament of human players. There were over 1,000 human players in it,
Yeah.
and the agents learned to become stronger than the baseline methods of a human, meaning that they easily exceeded the win rate of all of the human players.
Oh. I mean,
All of them.
I guess the big question here is: did the other players in the tournament know they were playing against a super AI, or did they get very
I'm not
confused when they just
entirely sure
kept
whether they
dying?
were whether they were told that they were or not. I don't know.
Right.
But yeah,
Okay.
I'm
So
pretty sure that's going to be it for my topic. Actually,
so okay. So
if you've got
what?
anything else to say on AI, then go ahead. Let's talk about it.
I don't think so. I mean, the subject of AI is just really interesting, and I advise anyone who's even sort of remotely sort of interested or wants to find out more to read up about it, because there is some really cool stuff being done with it. And it's the kind of thing you can, okay, you can create your own AI at home. Like
Yeah.
if you know how to code, obviously it will be a very, 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 very basic version. It'll be like what I created. You'll be able to identify shapes, but it can be
Oh
done,
yeah.
and you can learn the basics from it. And this is a non-sponsored plug, but Brilliant.org, who have sponsored a couple of Simon's videos, they actually have a module on machine learning and artificial intelligence and neural networks, which I actually started doing a little while ago to kind of brush up my knowledge. So
Yeah.
if you are interested, go check it out. Um,
Also, just while we're saying this, if you want to know more about sort of the maths behind how machine learning works, there's a brilliant channel on YouTube called Three Brown One Blue, and he does some very very complicated videos on how backpropagation learning works,
yes,
which is very interesting. Awesome videos. But yeah, also I just forgot in the last bit to say that interestingly, the AI automatically learn home-based defense, enemy-based defense, and following its teammates to play cooperatively instead of just for itself.
that's cool.
Awesome,
See,
right?
I would have thought it would have just acted as an independent player and not just sort of followed its instructions, but it actually
Yeah, no, it's
played as a team player.
yeah. The ones that do prefer the self-play actually cap off at being less strong than less or have a lower elo than a strong human does.
Wow, like I'm I
So yeah,
I'm
that's
going to have
pretty.
to read up on this after the episode, because
Oh yeah,
this is fascinating. I'm
yeah. Honestly, it's
Yeah,
brilliant.
awesome. So okay, so basically what you're saying is Skynet started out being a nerd playing games in its mum's basement. Excellent. I'm glad this is how we discovered how the human race ends, through a computer gaming
Yep,
robot.
essentially. Yep, a gaming robot is gonna kill the planet. There we go.
Hooray! Okay, so we've covered super AI learning how to play games. I think it's my turn now.
It
Um,
is indeed. Yeah.
Now, I did actually allude to my topic last episode, because I think you said it would be quite interesting to talk about. Um, so I'm going to be covering, those who have a sweet tooth might quite enjoy this, because I'm going to be covering the 3D printing of chocolate.
Oh yes.
So
Oh, this is gonna be brilliant.
yeah, so it's actually like I briefly discussed 3D printing last episode, with regards to the rocket motors that rocket engines that Rocket Lab were making. Um, but for those of you who might not have heard, 3D printing is essentially where you make up a 3D object by laying down layers of a substance, and by laying down multiple layers one on top of another, you're able to build up this 3D model. Now, yeah, Rocket Lab were using metal. I presume titanium, I can't remember off the top of my head. Plastics is a pretty common one. That's what most people think when they think 3D printers. But you can also use other substances. So long as it's a substance that you can melt and then can resolidify, you can use it for 3D printing. So some of the ones I've already mentioned, metal, but sugar, of course, you can melt and then resolidify. So you can create these wonderful sort of sugar sculptures. Glass, you can. I didn't realize until I did my research, but you can create 3D models from glass.
That's awesome.
Which, yeah, I mean, the temperatures involved in that must be insane, and you must be really, really
Oh
careful,
yeah.
but they work. Um, but obviously, sort of, as 3D printers were kind of beginning to take off in popularity, people were thinking, okay, we've got, plastic was the obvious one, of metal. What other substances can we go to? And obviously, people think with their stomachs. So they thought, well, chocolate you can melt and then re-solidifies. Why don't we just 3D print chocolate? Just melt it down, pass it through a nozzle, and just make a 3D model. So in 2007, some researchers first started development of 3D printing chocolate. And this is still fairly early on in the days of 3D printers. They're not as popular as they are now. There's still lots of issues with them. They're still very much a lab and research based thing. I'm not even sure that you could buy them just off the shelf as you can now.
Okay.
But yeah, these researchers started development. It just so happens one of our most commented upon places, University of Exeter, was
Okay.
where this first took place. And funnily enough, when I went to visit the university in 2010, I think, when I was first looking at where I wanted to go for my degree, I looked around the
Wow, that's
department.
incredible.
Yeah, I know, right? It's 8 years ago. It's
You
terrifying.
oldie.
Oh,
Yeah,
don't.
I started looking at universities about a year and a half ago,
Oh,
or
come
well,
on.
about 2 years ago.
Oh, jeez. I mean, it's not as bad as Simon thinking that I was older than him, but yeah, we'll gloss over that
Oh
quickly.
yeah, you know.
Yeah, but anyway, I saw these printers in development, and I remember being told, "Oh, we've been having issues with making it work because it's not as simple as you might think. Chocolate has a lot of different states, and we're trying to solve these issues." And for some reason, that just stuck. And maybe it was because I loved chocolate, maybe it was because I loved engineering, maybe it was a combination of the two. But that kind of, we can't get it to work at the moment because of this difficulties with the makeup of chocolate, just stuck around. So, last week I was thinking, okay, I'll look into it. And it turns out,
As you do.
exactly, it turns out they've been rather successful. In 2012, they actually were successful enough, able to spin a company off from the university dedicated to chocolate 3D printers.
Oh wow.
The company was called Chock Edge, and it was basically the researchers and the lab technicians and all those people who were involved who wanted to actually commercialize it. So they clearly got to the point in 2012 where they were confident enough that they could do it. And in 2017, which is when this timeline that I found goes up to, they were the world leaders in chocolate printing, and I imagine
Oh wow.
they probably
Okay.
still are. And it's not just a small thing. They've if I think I'm correct in saying I'm reading the facts here, but yeah, the last 10 years they've seen many landmarks: world's first prototype, world's first limited company specializing in the design and manufacturing of 3D chocolate printers, world's first dedicated apps for chocolate printing, um,
Wow.
world's
Okay.
world's
Can
first.
you get these apps anywhere or?
Quite possibly. I mean, the apps that I found are called Choc Text, Mix and Match, and Choc Draw. So I might check my the app store later and see if they're on there.
Was it Choc Text?
Choc Text, yeah, CHOCTEXT.
Okay, I'm gonna check right now. See if it's
Okay.
on Play Store.
Yeah, while he checks, world's first education programs focused on 3D food printing. Try telling that to someone even 20 years ago, and they would look at you as if you were mad. Oh yeah, we've just developed some lesson plans based around 3D printing foods. Pardon?
Yeah, I mean that's pretty insane. That's like sort of cloudy with a chance of meatballs kind of thing.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Exactly.
Okay. Just an update. It's not on there, but I have found one called Choc Draw.
Yes, Choc Draw, that's one of them.
Yeah, which is the one that is related to the company you're on about, the Choc Edge
Choc
one,
Edge,
which
yeah.
I'm just looking on their website now, and their 3D printer looks freaking awesome.
It looks dope, doesn't it? And the cool thing is, like, I'm looking at the picture as well. That looks like, okay, yeah, there is variation between 3D printers, but I see a stepper motor, I see some threaded bar. It looks like loads of 3D printers that I've seen before. So it's
Oh,
not
yeah.
it's not like a special, a particularly different radical design. It's just they've clearly taken the care when it comes to the chocolate, because that was where they were having the issues before. Because
Yeah.
you might think, oh yeah, melt the chocolate, extrude it out, solidify. Where's the issue? Melting chocolate not too difficult. The difficulty comes from the cocoa butter in the chocolate. So this is where we sort of
Right,
move
okay.
slightly away from engineering and more into chemistry. So
Okay.
chocolate is made up of many, 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 many compounds. I think a website that I haven't got in front of me, but I think I remember said last identified was about 300 different compounds in chocolates, and still
wow, okay.
loads more unknown. And the main one of this is cocoa butter, which you may know. But it's the cocoa butter that causes the problems in printing chocolate, but also gives it its kind of texture. And so I was looking into it, and cocoa butter is a form of fat. So for those of you who aren't so au fait
Yeah.
on chemistry, fats are very long sort of chains of molecules. You sort of have sort of like four, two, three, four chains next to each other with sort of a shorter chain linking them at the end. And these, the cocoa butter takes this form, but cocoa butter itself, at different temperatures, it forms crystals. And so these crystals I haven't actually found, but I imagine they're formed by the molecules of the cocoa butter kind of joining together and cross-linking, where you have sort of atoms that literally sit between the chains and create joins. It's
Okay.
and it cross-linking is sometimes good because it can increase the strength of polymers, but sometimes, like in chocolate, you don't want it to happen. So
No, not when you want to 3D print it anyway.
exactly. So as a result of these crystals, cocoa butter has six different forms of crystal. Forms one to
Oh wow.
six,
Okay.
and each of them form at a slightly different temperature. And this is where the difficulty comes in.
Right.
So if I tell you from 1 to 6, the melting points of these forms here. So form 1, 17.3 degrees, 23.3, 25.5, 27.3, 33.8, and 36.3. So
Okay, so very small
absolutely,
range.
they all form very close together. So
Very small
forms
range.
1 and 2, they that if you were to eat chocolate that had a lot of forms 1 and 2 crystals in it, you'd notice it was soft and crumbly, and it would have, when you find old chocolate and it's got that kind of white surface layer.
No.
Okay, clearly
I don't
you
know
just
this.
you eat the chocolate quickly enough.
Just to add a bit of context here, one, I eat chocolate quickly. Two, I only eat dark chocolate. So
Which has
if that's
yeah.
like a milk chocolate thing, then I wouldn't know.
Yes, again, I'm probably wrong here, but I believe there's a higher percentage of cocoa butter in milk chocolate than there is in dark. Anyway, so yeah, if you leave chocolate for a long time, it forms this sort of slightly white, not chalky, but sort of just layer on top of it, and that's the cocoa butter. That's the crystals kind of coming out of the chocolate. So
Yeah.
it's soft and it's crumbly. It's called blooming. Forms 3 and 4. It's firmer. The chocolate's firmer, but it doesn't
Right.
give a nice snap. You know when you just get a bar of chocolate and you're able to just crack it and it gives a nice snap.
Yeah.
It's not it's
Oh
not so
yeah.
strong. So it's harder, but it's not as hard. Form 5 is the ideal. It's shiny. It's got smooth texture. It snaps really well, and it's the kind of chocolate that just melts in your mouth.
Okay.
Form 5 is the ideal crystal. Form 6 is obviously the one above that. That's harder, melts slower in the mouth, and you get a little bit of blooming, a little bit of white surface colorant as well.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
and it can't be, I'm reading off a lovely infographic here, but it can't be formed from melted chocolate. It can only be formed after solid chocolate has been rested for at least 4 months. So that's when you just leave
Oh right. Okay.
chocolate for ages. So all of these crystals, apart from form 6, can be formed during melting or solidifying, except for
Yep.
form 6, which just forms because of time. So this is where we come on to sort of, okay, well, how do you deal with it? How do you deal with this this issue of the different forms of crystals forming? And what I've
Yeah.
helpfully done is I found a really useful graph of chocolate and the melting process, and what I've gone and done is lost it.
Okay. Ah.
So I'm going to
Congratulations.
can you tell I'm pro at this? So I'm just going to I'm
Amazing.
just going to stall for a bit. Found it.
Okay, I'm just going to ask you
Mm-hmm.
quickly, just a quick question. So when you think of you've left maybe a chocolate bar in the car or
Yeah.
something, and it's a hot
Yep.
day, and like we've had in England for the last few weeks, and it just goes all mushy, and it's not going to snap. Let's say it's not fully
Yep.
melted, but it's just at that point where it's really soft.
Hmm.
Would that be around Form 4, Form 5, or not Form 5? Sorry, Form 3 or 4?
Yeah, most likely. So reading through again, what I'll do is I'll stick this infographic on because this it probably explains it a lot better than I'm going to.
Sure.
Um, but Form One is produced by cooling melted chocolate very quickly by, for example, putting it in the freezer. Form 2 is made by cooling the chocolate at 2 degrees per minute. So you actually have to
Okay.
control the cooling cycle. Form 3 is produced by
Yeah.
cooling at five to 10 degrees. It doesn't say 5 to 10 degrees per minute. I guess it means hold it at 5 to 10 degrees. Um, and
Right.
Form 4 is produced by allowing melted chocolate to cool at room temperature. So yeah, I imagine if you've left your chocolate bar in the car and it's kind of become slightly soft but hasn't totally become totally molten, yeah, it's probably it's the crystals in there are forms 3 and 4. Um,
Okay.
so
Interesting.
when we're working with chocolate, we want to obviously control it so that we get Form 5, for the main sort of crystal that makes up our chocolate. And
Yeah.
you might say, okay, well that's fine. You just heat it up to, you know, 33.8 degrees. You melt or you sort of destroy all of the crystals from forms 1 to 5, and then you hold the temperature above, so long as the temperatures will be above 27.3 degrees, that's fine because the next crystal form will be 5 at 33.8, so you form that. But then you've still got to get rid of Form 6 because Form 6, you might have some Form 6 in there
Right.
anyway because the chocolate you're working with might have
Okay.
been made a while ago. It might just naturally have formed. So the
Yeah, of course, because we got to remember as well that chocolate is made from natural products. It's made from the
Yeah,
cocoa bean.
exactly. So this is where this is where chocolate and the manufacturing of swords comes in, which is a bit of a weird link, but
Yeah, that is
yeah, but
strange.
basically they both use what's called tempering, and tempering is when you heat up the substance, and in heating it up, you change its chemical properties. You destroy links between molecules. You might create new ones, and that way it then becomes easier to work with. So, for example, with steel, you can do you
Yeah.
can you can do what's called work hardening it. Say, for example, if you drill into steel or you hit it, by adding that kind of impact, you can actually pack the molecules closer together, and it makes the steel a lot tougher. But it also makes it a lot more brittle. Um, so if you then take the
Yes.
steel and you heat it up, you are then sort of pulling those molecules apart. You might be destroying some cross links that might have formed, um, and you return it to a different state. Um, there's many different states of steel, but that's not to talk about now. The point is, you also temper chocolate. So
You temper
yes,
chocolate?
not to the level that you do for steel. So
Okay.
what you do is you've got your chocolate at say storage temperature, 18 degrees C, and then
Okay.
over time you heat it up, and you heat it up to 50 degrees C. So quite hot. But
Right.
what this means, obviously, the final form of cocoa butter, it forms at 36.3 degrees. So you blitz past that, and then you have
Okay.
no crystals of cocoa butter. You just have just cocoa butter. You have all the fats in it. It's
Okay,
all
yeah,
just
sure.
swimming around. It's wonderful. Once you're at that temperature, you then cool it down, and you cool it down to 27 degrees C. And now,
Is that done like slowly in a controlled
yeah,
manner,
yeah,
or does it
yeah.
not
So
matter?
you don't rapidly quench it. You don't cool it really quickly. Um, but it's
Yeah.
it's not a slow cool. It's you just let it cool down to 27.3. Sorry, 27 degrees C. Um, and as you can tell,
Okay.
that's kind of just below um just below the formation temperature of Form 4. So you'll probably produce a few
Yes.
Form 4 crystals. Um, but then what you do is you then heat it back up again to 32 degrees, which, as you can see, is just below form 5. So that way you've destroyed all of the forms 1 to 4 crystals, but you're at a temperature where form 5 crystals still exist.
Right.
So,
And that would also make sense as to why you don't have to let chocolate melt and then cool down multiple times before it will go soft in a
yeah,
cup, because it will have had those form 4 crystals in it already from just the process of it being made.
exactly. So you then have your chocolate with its wonderful form 5 crystals. And of course, yeah, it's still below the form 6 temperature as well, but form 6 only forms from solid tempered chocolate that's been sat still for 4 months. So
Sure, yeah,
if
yeah.
you were to do the process, squirt out the chocolate, let it solidify, then leave it for 4 months, sure, you'd form 6. But that's
Yep.
not what we're looking at. We're looking at the molten chocolate right there, right now. So you've got your molten chocolate. The cocoa butter is in the form, the crystals are in the form you want, and then it's just like any 3D printing. You pass it through a heated nozzle, and you lay it down onto a board, and you've got stepper motors that move the nozzle head around, sort of in the X and Y direction. And then once you've done a layer, then normally the bed of the 3D printer will drop by a certain amount, and then you build up the next layer, and voila, you've got your 3D printer for chocolate.
And then, of course, get in my belly.
Exactly. And how were you that quick at putting on an echo? Like, I am impressed.
Just a special mixer.
Fair enough. I clearly need to invest in higher end equipment. But yeah, I mean, there's so much about 3D printers that surprises me. Like I'm learning more about them every day, or rather every day that I look into them. And I had no idea. Obviously, from my visit in 2010, I knew chocolate had its issues with being 3D printed, but I didn't understand why. But now I've kind of looked into it, and
Yeah.
I've got that sort of knowledge from my chemistry A level and sort of background research. Of course, it makes total sense that you need to get rid of the crystals of the size that you don't want and have only the ones that you do. Um,
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's just one of those things which is incredibly complicated that you wouldn't think is complicated, but it is, and you just find ways to combat it and get around it, and then make an awesome product at the end.
exactly. But I mean, unless you can think of anything else, that's kind of. I mean, there's a lot of information on both. Well, there's a lot of information on working with chocolate online because, of course, humans have been working with chocolate long before we started 3D printing it. So the knowledge and the sort of the skills for working with chocolate have existed for a long time. So there's a lot of information out on there, out on the net. But the 3D printing of chocolate, that's kind of where as I say, sort of 2007 it first started, and 2017, they were saying they're world leaders. So we're getting there. I believe I really need to check these things before. In fact, I'm going to check. I'm going to type in buy 3D printer chocolate. Yes, you can. You can buy Chalk Edge, of course, our favourite Exeter founded company. You can buy a 3D chocolate printer from them.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was saying before, where I looked on their website and it said that it showed the 3D
Oh,
printer
I
there,
see.
and
Yeah,
it's actually a V2 as well. It's not even a
yeah,
first
exactly.
version.
They're doing. Oh, I see. I was looking at the. I think I must have been looking at the V1, which was what I recognise as a 3D printer. But that's really slick. I I
Ah,
can
okay,
see.
yeah, it is. It's incredible. It's got like little LCD display
Yeah,
on it and all
I can
sorts.
see that
It's
just sitting on the
really cool.
side in like a swanky kitchen. Like, that
Yeah,
would not look out of place. You could mistake it for a
it
coffee
wouldn't at
machine.
all. Yeah, it does honestly look like a very, very fancy coffee machine.
Yeah. Oh wow. I wonder how much it is. Can can I justify buying one?
Probably out of both of our price ranges,
Oh,
I'd
I don't
imagine.
know. I don't need to buy a house at some anytime soon. I'll just spend that money.
Nah,
Uh,
nah. Who needs a house when you have a machine that can 3D print chocolate? Hey,
exactly. Aha! I've got it. Okay. Yeah. Do you want to take a guess? Ink vat. How much it costs?
oh, I'm gonna have a crack and say it's £1,200.
Higher.
£1,800.
Higher.
More?
Yeah, higher. It's like Brucey now. Hey, you go up and
Go
you
on,
go down.
just tell me.
It's
Just tell me.
£3,000.
Jesus.
£3,000 for a chocolate print. I mean, to be fair, they're the world leaders. They've spent, 11 years developing it. So clearly, they can charge that price. But my word.
And of course, like you said, it's something for a very high-end kitchen. It's not something that just everyone's going to buy and start 3D printing chocolate, because you've got to be quite the debonair to buy a machine that can 3D print chocolate.
Yeah. I really want to buy one now. This is really bad. Like, I actually, if I scooped into my savings, I could afford one. No. I'm closing this right now.
Savings are for rainy days.
Yeah, but just imagine if on that rainy day you didn't have money, but you had chocolate in the shape of a bunny. Like,
oh, you know what? It's all worth it.
Yeah,
just do it.
No, I've closed the web page. You will not tempt me today.
It's gone.
It's gone.
Never.
And of course, once you close the web page, it can never be opened again, even if it exists in your history.
Yep, it doesn't work like that. We all know that it works in a way where you could just never touch it again.
Absolutely. So yeah, that was 3D chocolate printers. Sweet.
Sweet chocolate. Yum, yum, yum.
Right. Okay. So I think that's us. We've done pretty well today. I mean, what have we talked about? What have we discussed?
So we've spoken about DeepMind AI,
yes.
And how it's been able to be made in such a way that it can beat a lot of human players at Quake 3 Capture the Flag game mode. And of course, Dan, you spoke about?
I spoke about 3D chocolate printers. Not printers that are 3D and made of chocolate, but printers that can print chocolate in 3D shapes. You have to be careful with the terminology there, otherwise it's like when you buy things off eBay. You have to be really careful about what, otherwise you might get something not quite what you're expecting.
Easy to get confused.
Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, if there were chocolate, there'll be other stuff. I mean, the bad thing is I can't think of any off the top of my head because I'm not, a clever man. But I'm sure there are other food substances out there that we could 3D print, or 3D print with rather.
Toffee. Toffee would be a good one.
Toffee would be a good one. Doesn't toffee have to be very, very hot?
Yes, it does. Well, it's mainly sugar. So actually, I guess with sugar, if you can do it with sugar, surely you can do it with toffee. Although it's a bit more viscous, so it might be a bit tricky.
Yeah. Well, I mean.
Anyway, we're going off topic.
We are, but it's still like, look into it. The range of possibilities for 3D printers is wonderful. This kind of rapid prototyping technology is evolving so quickly, and very, very excited to see where it goes next.
As am I. As am I excited to see where AI goes
Absolutely.
next.
Yeah, I do hope it gets used for good.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we've spoken about two really good topics that are going to impact the future in ways that we can't even possibly imagine at this point in time.
Exactly.
And, I mean, who knows? They could be the next big thing that is going to just blow everything out of the water and make us have another technological revolution.
Absolutely. But the cool thing about both of them is they're not out of reach. They're not out of reach to just the elite or, just working universities. As I said, you can start to teach yourself about AI at home. You can start to learn about 3D printers and maybe invest in, a plastic 3D printer yourself and start learning techniques. There's nothing to stop you from going out and trying and experiencing these things yourself.
Absolutely. You just got to remember the internet is out there and you can find an awful lot of stuff on the internet.
You do have to be careful though.
Indeed. Don't go on those dodgy websites, kids. Make sure you have an antivirus.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us on our brief delve into the world of, well, not so much physics and engineering, but IT and chemistry this week. If you're interested in either of the topics we've discussed, the links will be in the show notes.
Alternatively, if you'd like to contact us for any reason, including donations to my chocolate printer fund, which I definitely want to set up, our email is sparksquarks@gmail.com. That'll also be in the show notes. If you've got a topic you'd like us to cover, please do let us know. That's it from us.
See you next time.